All right, guys, in today's video, I will give my thoughts on what I believe is truly missing from coverage in Madden football. And this is regardless of the zone type. There's a specific thing that is missing that prevents organic coverage from happening. All right, let's get into it. All right, guys, so in this particular video, man, I'm using cover 4. And the reason why is because cover 4 is one of the more complex coverages, as far as defensively, because there's so many different variations of it and checks and things of that nature. And in this particular instance, as you're going to see, I'm going to choose cover 4 palms press, which adds another little wrinkle. But basically, I'm just going to let this continue to play out as I explain what I'm showing here. And, you guys can see it for yourself. For you guys that don't really know what cover 4 does and certain variations of it and yada, 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 I'm going to try to keep it very simple here. With palms, it's a very simple concept. It's a 2 read. The cornerback is reading through the number 2, okay? So if the number 2 goes vertical, which is typically 7 or more yards, then the cornerback will drop into a deep quarter coverage, and basically they're playing like a standard quarters at that point, right? But let's say the number 2 stays short. Then the cornerback, what he should be doing in that case is playing outside in. So he's more or less, more inclined to jump any out-breaking routes, right? Now, here's the kicker. With palms, the safety is doing the same thing in terms of who they're reading. The safety is reading the number 2. And if the number 2 goes vertical, excuse me, then he's responsible for playing the middle 4th zone, pretty much. He's pretty much playing that 4th area in the middle of the field, kind of using inside leverage or what have you. Well, again, let's say if the number 2 stays short, then the safety must adjust his drop, right? Safety got to get back. He got to get back and get on his horse, as you're probably already seeing in this example. Because now he's responsible for number 1. So if number 1 is going vertical down the sideline, that safety got to be a dog and get back there, right? So now that you kind of understand that simple concept, if you take a look at what's happening in this play, you notice that there's times that the cornerback is sagging off and he's dropping down and he's covering number 2. And then there's other times, exact same play, he's doing what he's supposed to do, and he carries the number 1 down the field. So if you look at this in the naked eye, in this example right here, this looks like blown coverage, but technically it's not. But here's the issue. How is the cornerback recognizing the number 2? How is he recognizing that with his back turned? Now, last night on the Sim Standard podcast, man, I kind of attacked what was happening in this clip. And then I looked at it several times a day and I said, oh, okay, you know what? I have to correct myself because I see what they're trying to do here. What they're trying to replicate, the corner playing a bail technique and reading the number 2 at the same time, right? And this is, in my opinion, very hard to accomplish in a video game because now you're asking him to play a technique that some humans have a difficulty doing, right? And as you can see now, I'm switching up the route a little bit. I'm going to send the number 2 inside, and you can see what happens here. Again, go back and remember what I said in the beginning as far as the rules, right? So I think they are attempting right here to have the number 1 read the number 2, and if he stays underneath, he's going to drop down and try to jump any outbreaking route. But where it's difficult, in my opinion, where I think the bug might be and or what's missing from coverage, technically number 2 is running a vertical. Technically, because it's beyond 7 yards. Now, it's close. It's close, right? If you look at that route that he's running, it's very close. But technically, he's running deeper than 7 yards before he breaks out, right? So in my mind, I'm like, okay, so is the number 1 reading that as a underneath route, outbreaking route, or is he reading it as a vertical? Thus the reason why you see, as I run this play over and over and over, you get different results. Sometimes he continues to run with the 1. Sometimes he drops down, even though, again, like I said, it looks like he's a psychic DB because, again, the video game is just doing what's programmed. It's only doing what it's programmed to do, which brings me to my point of what's missing in coverage. What's missing in coverage in this game is improvisation. Improvisation is missing. There's no improv in coverage. That's why you get those situations, even in cover 2 and cover 3 and all of that. You get those situations where guys are just playing grass. Nobody's looking for work. And what I mean by improvisation, I would like to see a situation here where if the the corner playing the number 1 and the number 1 continues to go vertical, like in this example, his back is turned, I would like to see a situation where he just continues to run because he's committed to that decision. You understand what I'm saying? Because from the naked eye, the game, because the way the game is presented, it makes you feel like when he peels off of number 1 and comes down, most people will say, oh, what is he doing? That's broken. But technically it's not, because he's reading that route as an underneath route. It's intermediate. So you could kind of say, yeah, it's underneath. Technically it's vertical because it looks like the number 2 was going more than 7 yards before he breaks out, but that's close. So I understand why that happened. Now look at the situation that you're looking at right here. I got the number 1 running a slant. And look at the conflict. You got the safety and the corner reading the same guy. And the outside corner actually plays it right because he peels off. When that the out route, well, the kind of the C route, I guess you would say there, when it breaks outside, he's still jumping number 2. But look at what happens with number 1 now. And see what cover 4, depending on the coach and depending on how they teach the technique, there's techniques that will allow that backside safety to come down and rob that. There's also techniques in certain cover 4 that will have the play side safety come down because he can see that the number 1 is running an inside pattern. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you have your base cover 4 and then you have all of these different rules based on situation. And then even with that, you have different coaches that will still run it differently. They might flip-flop the responsibilities of the number 1 and the number 2. What are we doing off of these guys, even though it's a 2 read? And they might, switch up the responsibilities of the play side and the backside safety. I've seen that. But in Madden, it's like, how much coding can you have to make that improvisation? You understand what I'm saying? And I honestly and truly think that is the issue with coverage across the board. There's no improvisation. And I don't know how you do that. I really don't. It's a video game. As you can see, I'm showing this play in slow motion, but look at what happens here. Like I said, there are scenarios in cover 4, depending on what's called, where you would have that backside safety. Instead of doubling that number 1 guy on that side, he drops down and robs what comes across. I've also seen it played to where the play side safety will recognize, oh, number 1 is going inside, let me cut. Or either double team the number 2 if it goes vertical. You see what I'm saying? So many scenarios there, man. And again, I don't know what they're going to have to do to introduce those type of real world decisions. And I don't know. All I do know, though, is I think that is the real issue with coverage in any zone, is there's really no improvisation. It's basically programming them to get to this spot and do what you're supposed to do. And if nobody's there, just stand there. You know what I mean? So that's just my 2 cents, man. Of course, please, I would love to hear you guys' comments here. Leave me your thoughts. And that's all I got. So until next time, guys, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, cut on your notifications, hit that like button. I'll catch you in the next one.